Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast with Angela Dunn-Cartledge. Hey there, it's Angela from Been There, Done That. If you're navigating the wild, unpredictable world of grief, I want to invite you to something special. It's called Messy Mornings, and it's our free weekly newsletter filled with real talk, gentle reminders, and support that actually meets you where you are. Each week, I'll send you stories, reflections, healing prompts straight to your inbox. No fluff, no pressure, just the space to release, feel, and heal. You don't have to do this alone. Head over to dunnthatpodcast.com and sign up for Messy Mornings. It's totally free and it's made with you in mind. I've been there, and let's walk through this together. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Been There, Done That podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Dunn-Cartledge. I am here with my new good friend, Elinor Moshe, and we are going to talk about all things grief and especially our unique definitions. I can't wait to have this conversation. Elinor, thank you so much for being here.
A pleasure, and it is a loaded topic, and it can be unraveled in so many different ways, and society tends to flat pack it with just death and something that most people have such an aversion to, but it goes far deeper than the loss of an individual, which is, of course, significant as well. There is no taking away from anyone's direct experience. So I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I love the work that you're doing, and I'm incredibly thankful that um, we're on the same page on this. So I can't wait to dig in some more. Tell everybody what you're why you're here and what you bring to the world.
My journey might look conventional from the outset. I had incredible career success and did really well, but I was only doing really well in the world for a short period of time, or so I thought. And I've published 4 books, and I had an award-winning podcast host, and I was in rooms and collaborations that people would keeled over to get into. But there was an ache that couldn't be named. There was a sense of something missing that nothing could fulfill. So you keep on chasing the success. You keep on doing more of what you are conditioned to and foundationed on doing, thinking that if I just go that little bit more and that little bit more, I'll have that breakthrough that the conventional coaching industry promises, but it never came. And instead of a breakthrough, it was a breakdown, because the business success was creating such a rift between my internal and external worlds. Of course, they are really one and the same. And the more that they became split off from each other, the narrative didn't hold. And the unconscious by that point in time, it wasn't that I was just sitting around twiddling my thumbs thinking, how do I get out of enmeshed parental dynamics, both in my personal life, and that repeated itself in my professional world. But when that rift grew into a chasm, the unconscious came to aid. And I realized that I was playing a game of adherence to false authorities and compliance to truly disempowering value systems. And the hidden cost of this exchange revealed itself later to include such a deep disassociation and disconnection from my mind, body, and spirit. But like all others, we grow up mirroring a life that this is all that we knew. There are no deeper parts. I am who I am, and the narrative just goes on. But when finally the truth of the reality that I was perpetuating came to light, that's when the unraveling started. And that is when, of course, a lot of, and why we're here having this conversation, grief comes up with all of that.
And it has to, right? Because unfortunately, when the unraveling begins, the generally speaking, in my experience, and now as you've described in your experience, what it all comes down to is the fact that we did not deal with something that happened before that. That there was something that is rooted in uh, that that hole, that place that we can't seem to fill enough with success or with busyness or with so many other things. And um, I really do personally resonate with the busyness piece of it, the idea of accomplishment filling that hole, and that you just can't seem to get enough to fill this bottomless pit, right? I love the way that you described the unraveling of the parent piece of this, the parentified situation that you had and then became, and trying to disenfranchise that from yourself, but also to create a better definition of yourself. Talk us through what that felt like, what that was like in those in that initial unraveling moment, because I know from again from personal experience that when you start to feel that unraveling, that's exactly what it feels like.
It feels like the ground that you thought was that you were standing on, even though it's built on sand and it was already forever falling apart. But it's like trying to build a house on sand and then the stilts start caving out and then the sand starts, whittling away and everything that you thought you had an attachment to, you realize is false or it's a construct. On many different levels, many things are, but there are some constructs which we have a tighter grasp onto than others. So you're trying to catch the sand, you're trying to grasp onto the fog, and it leaves you feeling very chaotic internally because there's nowhere to ground, there is nowhere to land. And the realization, and everyone goes through this in different magnitudes when they experience the dark night of the soul, for example. It's like waves crashing over you as to what have I been doing or being? It's like I don't exist anymore. And it creates such internal turbulence, for lack of a better word. It's all I'm trying, like, analogies is probably the best way to explain it. It's like an airplane is cruising, and then you wake up and you realize that no one has been sitting in the pilot's seat, and it's just been on this autopilot. And then all of a sudden, you have no idea what plane this is, how to fly it, where it's going, where it's been, what baggage it's carrying. You don't even have any fuel because you're exhausted doing laps around, your stories and your life. And then it does eventually crash land. It has to. And that's what it can feel like. And then when that happens internally, people around you very quickly want to try and put you back into the box because they have a very deep attachment to your wounded sense of self and the role, of course, that you play within their life because of that wounding. So then it starts to shake up the people that you thought would love you no matter what, that you thought would always be there, the people who would understand you, so on and so forth. So then the friction starts showing up in how you even function. And for some people, this can really disturb them in their ability to work and their ability to really do anything. It is so destabilizing that it doesn't sound like, it's not fun, it's not great for anyone to do. No one's really want to voluntarily go into this space, but it definitely does not look pretty, and sometimes it doesn't look pretty for years. It doesn't have to be that way, because it's also, we're realizing that with where we find ourselves, how much we are ill-equipped, how many parts of ourselves have also, in shamanism, the concept of soul loss or soul fragmentation. Parts of us have, and then there is grief associated with that, and we can talk to that when you have first-hand experience with those parts. So all of a sudden, you're trying to do this stock take of what the hell is even happening internally, and it can be both devastating and freeing at the same time.
In fact, I would contend that it is devastating and freeing at the same time for the exact reason that we're talking about. For the exact reason that you have to unravel what wasn't functional in the first place, that appeared to be functional. I love your word construct. I use it all the time. That was this false way of building our foundation. And then we grow up and realize that is a house of cards. That is, exactly to your analogy, that is a house built on sand and it isn't even really up. We think it is from the outside, but we can't even go in the front door because there's not a way to actually stand on solid ground. And that is such a real um, way to describe the identity shift that it creates, because you are now rebuilding who you are from the inside out. You are going to have to do that as part of this process. It's really, I look back at it now realizing that it is beautiful, because it's that, I don't know if you've ever heard this, well, probably have heard this analogy, that in order for a flower to grow, the seed has to completely destroy. But you think that it is not destructive because of the beautiful flower that it creates. It's that kind of a feeling to me, that that destruction has to happen for that flower to grow, for that growth to occur. You have to allow the unraveling, and you have to know, which most of us don't in that moment, that you've got this, that you don't have any confidence in that moment because you realize that everything is built on sand, to your point. Yeah, it's really
Absolutely.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth in folks that are starting to notice that they're living in a house of cards? They're starting to and I guess the unraveling hasn't totally started yet, but it's about to. Like, they can sense that that unraveling is about to start. What now?
It's, when you lift the hood on everyone's unconscious, it is very different. And this is something that the coaching industry gets wrong. It flat packs people into thinking we all have our executive functioning, we all understand everything the same way as everyone else. And ideally, I won't go into the details, but they flat pack you. And they all think that you can put everyone through the same 12-step program, or spend a year with me and you'll come out completely transformed, without ever opening the unconscious hood. We have no idea what someone has come into this life with. We have no idea where the soul has traversed in any dimension across parts of the infinite which we can't even understand. There is no way to flat pack that into language alone. For example, with grief, for me, a lot of what's coming to this lifetime is a lot of disenfranchisement and disempowerment for being a woman. I have not yet seen a life of a powerful woman in my lineage or in my past lives. So maybe one or two, but or there have been, but there's always been a missing aspect. So here I was trying to be I'm a successful, strong, independent woman. It's like, no, you're not, because all of the lives that I still had attachments to are very deeply rooted in abandonment, or have been misled by patriarchy. So I could be sitting here, let's say I was sitting here with you, for example, like, hey, Angela, I have no idea what's going on. And then if you weren't aware of all the different layers that we come in with, you could just be like, oh, just get over it. Or it's in the past, Eleanor. Like, why does it even matter? Just, okay, what's your passion? And you should be able to figure it out. It's like, that won't work for some people. So in the first instance, you can start spinning your wheels with the conscious and working with conscious faculties, but the stories don't live there, they just get replayed there. So for people, it's lifting the hood on the unconscious, and that is to your soul, and that is, of course, to your body, where it is all stored as well. And I went through the process of, working with the conscious faculties. I'm very Aquarian, and I have a lot of like air energy in my astrological chart. So some people need that, but as what I'm really trying to get to, there's no one way. But I think people trying to instill safety in themselves first, and that might mean just learning how to connect with your breath and slowing down, or journaling, or finding something that gives them just that little bit of stability is important, because things can get very shaky very quickly with this, and it can bring up a lot of fear, and then people stop, so they suppress it. But really, anyone who's starting, it's about being able to meet them where they're at. And we don't know where that is until you lift the unconscious hood and go, all right, what have you come into this life with?
I really love what I'm hearing you say is awareness. I'm hearing you say just starting to plug in to the things that you have disassociated with within your own process, your own system, your own routines, whatever those look like at the beginning. You're just starting to look around inside your body, inside your soul, um, inside that heart space, and be able to say, uh, "That's kind of dusty over there. I know I haven't gone over there in a while." Those kinds of concepts that I think we, especially when we bring in generational hurt, that there's a lot more shadowy places than we give ourselves credit for, because we've never known that they weren't there, right? That we've only we came into this world, to your point, with them already in place. And so then you just assume, well, that's the way it's supposed to go. I particularly, going back to your construct comment, that you build this idea of what you think you want, then you start going after it, and then you start the unraveling. The only way is to back up, is to look deeper and to go inside. I mean, I really, it's the only thing that worked for me. But I think that that's what you have to do in order to get to the root of the problem, to find where it's coming from. I so agree. I see so much in the dysfunctional part of this, that we bring the dysfunction to light, then we try to fix it, we try to undo it, we try to acknowledge it, whatever that might look like. What does that look like in terms of acknowledging or unravel? I shouldn't use the word unraveling because we've already done that, but I mean the I guess the piecing together of the puzzle of all the pieces that we bring to the table, from inside of us. How do we acknowledge that and then move on?
The right tool for the right job. So, depending on where someone is at. So, for example, we practice QHHT, so past life regressions. And that could be very confronting to some people to, for example, start with, because in order to have a successful regression, you need to completely suspend the concept of Angela, the whole pack of who Angela is, and allow the unconscious, or the part of you that holds the life that is most prevalent to you at this point in time. So your higher self typically, or your spirit team, leads the regression and what you need to see and experience today. And that can be just the thought of letting go of yourself, even for 2 hours, even though you are in the somnambulistic state. You have awareness. You can, in the same merit you get up to go to the bathroom at 3 a.m., you can do that in a regression. You're not complete. We're not going to turn you into a chicken kind of thing, which is where culture has really ruined a lot of sacred practices. But that could be way too much for someone to even fathom. Like, that challenges their whole notion of incarnation. Even me mentioning this, I am assuming that people have the belief system that this isn't your first time here. This isn't your first run. You've been around. The soul has had many other bodies before it's had me, and it will continue to have other bodies and other experiences after me. So that alone can just warp someone, and they just shut down the concept. Whereas they might need a more gentler inquiry. Well, I was going to say tarot, but even tarot has, sometimes it just goes straight to the heart. Like, when it touches a nerve. And that might be something that people can sit with. Other times, people might just need to hold onto their body, create very gentle somatic experiences. It might be just, okay, I want to know what my blueprint is. So human design and astrology, soul contract. Again, there's many modalities that people might find to meet them where they're at and what they're actually looking for. And some might give them the answers in one system. Great, it might serve them. For others, like, myself and Daniel, where we don't sit with any of them. We sit in between all of them, because the truth, they offer some truth, but it's not the whole truth of who you are.
What I see in that is the ability to build layers, that you start with what, to your point, wherever feels comfortable, whether that be the big regression 2 hour session, or we go with the rebuild, or the blueprint. That's what you called it. I love that. You go in either direction, but then that doesn't mean that that's the only modality that you can use. You can always build them on top of each other to get a more complete story if you need it. So I really love the idea that there are more options. This one may have given a little bit of information and kind of gave you a little bit more stable footing, so that you could then go on to the other tools. I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. And these modalities, you don't go out looking for astrology. Astrology will find you. You don't go out looking for a past life regression. For me, it was it banged on my door and I opened it finally. And it was, a very fateful experience for me and my then best friend, now partner. But there is a readiness that comes with this. And, even sometimes a tarot reading can be so alarming to someone, and that's it. That's the end of their investigation. But it means the soul isn't ready, and it's, you can't just package it. Oh, they're being fearful. There are many reasons why they have that such deep fear against these tools, and maybe they don't want to do the work in this season. So yeah, to shortly answer the question, it's the right tool for the right job, and that doesn't mean that not everyone's in the position to go spend hundreds of dollars a month, thousands per month trying all of this. The internet, there's apps, there's practitioners, there's really good content out there that affords people a way in through their own home. But in respect to that, sometimes the home is the place where all the grief is stored. So you can't even do the work there. So
True.
again, there's layers and considerations to just do the work. It doesn't always work that way. And we're aware of that through our own experience.
And that's where I feel that the individual side of this comes in, that we can then guide ourselves by saying, I want more answers, I want more definition, I want more work. And we'd have to be ready for that. I really love the way that you have framed that it sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so we go into it and think, oh man, that was really overwhelming. Oh no, oh no. And then you have to sort of back into it again. But personally, I'm more of a jump then look person. And
Yeah.
so then I'm already off the cliff going, oh, rocks. That might not go like I want it to. So I can see that the overwhelm could happen after or could happen ahead of time, just in the description of the modality could overwhelm somebody at lots of points in the process.
Of
Yeah.
course, and I experienced that overwhelm, but I wasn't respecting that. I went very hard, very fast, and I caused a lot of stress to my nervous system when I was doing that. And I wasn't respecting the process of unraveling either. So not recommended for everyone to do that, even though you might be hungry for it, but you're also dealing with very young parts of you that they're not ready for it. The ego adult sitting here right now might be like, let's throw everything out the window, but it is a delicate process as well.
And takes time. And that's what I'm
Yes,
hearing you say. That it's not I think as humans, when we are miserable, when we are in that unraveling moment, we want relief as
yeah,
fast as
yeah,
humanly possible. And so we think, like you just described, we think, I'm just going to do them all. I'm going to do all the tools all
yeah.
at once. And then you realize probably was not the smartest thing in the whole world to do. But
No,
again, you have to, luckily, we are resilient beings and we can heal. And I'm thankful that you have figured out how to heal yourself, even through the
working on
overwhelm
it,
and through the
working on it.
breakdown and all the things. It's a journey, right? It's not a destination. um, how would you go about giving advice to someone that has done a lot of work? Maybe that person is sitting here in front of you with a green shirt on, just as an example, and they've done a lot of work toward this end, but haven't quite felt like they have found that modality. How do you lead them to the modality that works the best for them?
We use astrology as a basis because that's very revealing as to how people will respond to certain things or not. Not necessarily respond to certain things. Like it doesn't tell you, oh, Angela, um, you must do, I don't know, a, a QHHC session every week. Like it doesn't tell you that. But even soul contract numerology carries certain frequencies that are coded into your birth name. And each of those frequencies also come with recommendations. So we start with both soul contract numerology, but also astrology as to how people work. So, my partner will, he's very dominant with like verbal things, and Mercury's his chart ruler. So for him, talking about things is very helpful. Whereas, and that's how he can actually move large energy quickly. So when he's not in conversation or not talking to people, that is very detrimental to someone of his fabric. Whereas, looking at, let's say, my soul contract numerology, it is very much heavily rooted in body consciousness. So my exploration ultimately needs, and it's a big part of this life, and the purpose of this life is understanding all facets of the feminine. And you do that through the body. So when someone asks me, particularly my partner, how I feel, and I can't answer that question, then I'm not in resonance with my body. So there are modalities that ultimately just simplify things. But at the same time, we also tend to overcomplicate this work. And we get told this by our higher selves all the time. All the time. The first thing that we don't know how to really do is relax properly.
Oh
And
my goodness.
sometimes unwinding is unwinding takes
Impossible. It's
hours. Yeah.
impossible. Yes,
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, they tell us all the time, like, you want to do the work yourself, you need to relax. And we don't know how to relax. We're not, there's scripts and just layers that are, at the front door. They're just barricading the front door, and you need to get through that. And then learning how to relax, because it's also starting to engage with, deeper feminine and masculine principles of active relaxation and passive relaxation. So it's sacred. It is a sacred act. But when we think it's a waste of time, we think it's not going to get us anywhere, so on and so forth. So even underlying any modality that we want to do, if we can't relax, it's an exercise in futility.
I can see the that idea that we think it won't work also being going back to that concept of I just want to feel better. Can we please do this faster? And that isn't how this really works. It took you this long.
Guilty.
Yeah, and it took you this long to get this gnarled up, to get I had a therapist once that called it a hairball. Like that we're just big old hairballs walking around. And you have to actually like pick all the bits out because otherwise you can't get to the real root of what is really tangling you up otherwise. But when we realize we are that miserable, all we want, and you just said it yourself, all we want to do is get there as fast as we can. Just hit the
Yeah.
gas pedal and just peg the needle, as they say in the States. So how can we how can we do this ourselves? How can we learn that relaxation piece, or get to a place where we can start to be more aware of our body and what is happening within it?
When I used to live in my parents' house, I wanted to do this work, but these are the rooms and the walls which carry the unheard grief. It carries the invisible grief. It carries the spaces which could not hold you. Literally your emotions are absorbed into the wall, and your world has come down to, this your childhood bedroom. I was living in my childhood bedroom since till 32, and I only like switched out of it into the room next door when I was 32 as well, at the early 30s. And it's like, no one saw the problem with that. Ultimately, I still had furniture that my parents gave me when I was 4. And yeah, sure, like, call me ungrateful. But eventually, when you're mid 30s, you end up owning your own furniture. Like, up until my partner and I moved out, neither of us really had our own furniture. And to some people, it's like, so what? It's liberating, it's freeing. But we also have a lot of home energy in us. The home is very important to us, our fourth house astrologically. So doing this work yourself, I share that because I tried, and I did do things. I did get to, you know, certain revelations and whatnot in that space. But it was always with a one eye out the door because a parent could walk by. Like, you can never really fully drop in unless you have that safety and privacy in your own home. So environment may be a very big barrier to some people. And that's why, if they're living in the spaces which caused the shutting down, the disassociation, it can be quite challenging. For those people who can separate that, that space, then creating your own sacred space whatever that means. It's a ritualistic practice of shutting down reality. So it's like shutting down the kitchen, turning off your phone, going to have a shower. It might mean candles, it might mean incense, it might mean nothing at all. But if you can transform your space into, a mystical experience, and that's what we do. The lights go low, the crystals come out, the cards come out, the incense goes up, and you can start to transport yourself into, you're blocking out your senses. And then what are you left with? You are left with yourself. And that could be a really good in for people to even start relaxing. So you've showered, so you've relaxed the muscles, and then conscious relaxation. It might mean, doing a body scan and releasing the tension. It might mean touch. It might mean breathing out. It might mean anything for anyone. And then, and sure, like that's a luxury. That could be a 3-hour practice. There's your whole evening done for, and for some people, it's like, I don't have time for that. It's like, I get it. I also want to, we go through seasons of I just want to live my life as well. It's like I have to do this. But it's like, well, this is the work. This is what the soul has been yearning for so long now that we've stopped running. So that's a start.
It feels like a practice. Yes, it feels like practicing, trying different things and putting them in place and saying, okay, well, that sort of worked. Then let's do it again and see if it works a little bit further. It feels, again, the small steps trying feels difficult at first when you have never done that before, when you're not
Yeah,
used to the awareness, when you're not used to the intention, when you're not used to doing any of those things. It is difficult at first. And, but I think that this goes right back to your point about being overwhelmed, that the point of doing it in stages like that allows you to catch up to what is happening, allows your nervous system to understand what is happening, allows your brain to understand what's happening. I know that's part of the nervous system, but I'm saying that the thinking part of you, that does that all day long and makes itself so known, that you have to be able to reason it around what is happening. And um, sometimes there is no reasoning. I understand that too. I feel like I want to ease our listeners into the way that they can feel comfortable with the flexibility of this, that it is going to take some ebbing and flowing, some stepping and then stepping back, some moving around, and understanding that there are just beautiful ways that this will reveal itself, if given enough space and enough time. Does that sound right?
course. Yeah,
Okay.
and overall, like I've been in a season of overwhelm because it's, I make it joke now. It's like just put the block or put whatever it is on the maintenance logbook. It's, it does get quite overwhelming at times, and knowing how to still serve yourself and connect with the part that needs you. These are all skills that we don't inherently come like we do inherently come with, but they could be so far gone, so far under that it all feels like too much. And that's where support and conversations with people are just imperative.
Great. I love the idea of the community of it, that you're not only doing this work yourself, but you're doing it with the universe, really. I mean, you're connecting to so many different layers of humanity, but also to your generational past. It's really cool. There's so many, so outside of, you said this at the very beginning of the episode, but it's so outside of what we think we know in our tangible world, that I love that it gives us, again, flexibility. That this is so much more dynamic than what we've ever really talked about. I love it.
Of course. And, it's to bring attention truly to ourselves and our soul. That could be the work of a lifetime. It doesn't have to be. And, we refer to it as work and, work, work, work and do more work, but it's not always. And I learned this as well. It's, and learn it to varying degrees. It's not always about the heavy. This is also about giving yourself that permission and that space to go do something that you've always wanted to do, but you've always parked. Like when I started, doing the shadow work, and my coach was like, go see animals, because I have a deep connection to animal spirits, and I was a nature child, and I didn't know that part of me at all, because why would I go to nature? You can't take that to the bank. Like, I was so wrapped up in the bro stuff that I'm pretty sure I've said that online before, and it's like, that's disgusting. That's actually a disgrace on the feminine. That's doing exactly what patriarchy wants you to do. And I went to an animal farm, and it was just absolute delight. And you forget that you can even have that delight when you are doing the work. And I go to practice, and I and it takes me so long, and I can't do anything. It's like the ritual of whether it's relaxation or doing the work isn't just about always with mystical tools and going deeper into any modality. It can simply be about going and doing something which liberates your soul. And if that means patting an animal, then great.
So
Even when
cute.
yeah, and
Yeah.
even when I started, like, I also have a lot of water energy, and I don't know how to swim, because water represents emotion. So what have I been the most afraid of is my own emotions. And my shadow work coach also said, go to the pool. And I'm like, why would I go to the pool? And then eventually I took myself to the pool, and I could move my body in all directions. And when I was living in my parents' house, it was very compressed. I had a lot of compression energy there. There was nowhere, there was literally, I had no space. And then all of a sudden my body could move. And that already does a lot of work to show you different patterns and different ways of being. So it can be something as simple as that, or even going to nature. Not that it's something externalizing it, but I never valued that. The first time I watched a sunset was with my partner, and it was quite beautiful how the tones change. There's nothing to do but watch the sunset, and that was revolutionary in my world, because all what I had known up until that is like hustle, grind, produce, capitalism, like bro scripts.
Capitalism. I love that. My favorite part of that is that you were saying that you felt so constricted at home, and that the idea that you couldn't be was foreign to you, that there was not a way that that could actually be part of it. How do we forgive? How do we move through that process for people that are still here? Are we able to do this work even with our current dysfunction and our constructs that are broken?
That's a great, that could be a show unto itself. What I had a shamanism session quite early on, and that's where he introduced you to the concept of forgiveness. And I was like, who do I need to forgive? I'm not holding on to anything.
I'm so good. Just know that I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's like, I'm not holding on to anything. It's like, really? And it came down to, forgiving myself, because sometimes you can't forgive other people. Like, my partner helped me realize that sometimes blame does need to be assigned to other parties. It doesn't mean I'm going to carry that, but there are times when blame, not necessarily shame, but they did have a part. But can I forgive the part of me that really didn't know any better in that scenario? And there are some things that are unforgivable. There are hell spots on earth. There are atrocities against animals and children, like innocent souls, women, men. Like, it doesn't matter what container they come in, they have an innocent. Some things are unforgivable. And how do we find that peace in ourselves? Sometimes there are atrocities. The deeper that you look into the world and what's happening and why it happens, it is, again, possibly unforgivable. But when we're talking about, let's say, micro events, or just bringing it back to, when the person is here, you can also start to see how they have also been a victim, not only of themselves, but of patriarchy and of invisible systems that have been, contorting and pulling them, and they no longer exist. The person, might be mother. She, yes, they might have done the most and their best, but look at their generations and where they came from and the templates that they were given. And sure, it can offer a rationale, but it's never there to take away from the direct experience of what you had. So can we, forgive someone else? We might not be able to, because it might not be able to birth a healthy relationship, or a conscious relationship at least. But can you stop beating yourself up for should-haves and could-haves? And that was very challenging for me, because now I saw it. It's like, oh, you're so stupid. How did you not see it then? It's like, I didn't have the awareness. I wasn't allowed to see this. I didn't even have any cognition of this. I didn't even have those faculties operating. So how could I have seen it? But now that I know better, have I done better? And if I've done a little bit better than I would have before, great. We're hopefully on an upwards trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same goes for um our generations before us too, our parents, their parents, the things that we do see, the tangible things that we do know existed. In that's where I see that blame it not mattering as much when you realize they did the best they could or they didn't do the best they could, but it is what it is. You can't go back and change it from there. It what I see it as providing, if you don't do the forgiveness work or don't do the moving forward work, is that you allow yourself to stay still. You allow yourself to have the excuse of not growing, not destructing the negativity, and you, by not allow by not moving through that, you then have the problem of I'm using this as an excuse. I'm allowing this to hold me back, and I'm doing it on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are, especially when we look at mother and father relationships across any scale, like that's, there's so much grief that comes with that, and there's so much that comes up. You want them to try and see you for who you are, but that may be impossible. Sometimes the best thing that people can do is go no contact. Like these are very intricate, dynamic situations where forgiveness may not be on the cards for quite some time until you've reconciled and integrated different parts of you. There's no one path again for how people would experience something like this.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you were to give our audience a parting shot, one tip that they could take away from this episode that they could apply right now to their lives, what would you recommend they do? I know
Oh,
that's a hard one that I mean, that you've already gone over in wonderful, beautiful
no,
detail
not at all. I think
that we have to go through.
I think a quality that my partner has in leaps and bounds, and something that really carried me through the start of my journey. And sometimes I lose that sense, and that's when I start to loop and get stuck, is questioning everything. And sometimes I don't want to question myself, which is a defense mechanism, because I'm tired of doing that. It's like, but that's part of the program that is keeping you small and keeping you stuck. And I go through those loops. I go through those seasons of bypassing. I'm not sitting here saying I have integrated and I am, an enlightened being. Like, by far, no. I've really only, I know I have done a lot of work, but with where my soul has been, there is infinite more. But to answer your question, it is to question everything. Everything down from food. Like, why do I eat the things that I do eat? Why do I eat in this manner? Something that we've had to learn is also how to eat very slowly. The body doesn't like it when you just vacuum food and you're not consciously eating. And, we've had to really learn how to slow down dinner, slow down eating. And I was told, like, if you're going to rush food, don't eat it all. Body doesn't want it. But then also, what are we eating? Are we consuming things that are alive, or are we consuming things that carry the frequency of death and suffering? So that then gets ingested in our body. Even just the relationship to food is the first externalized relationship that we have. And people don't want to examine that, because my pancakes or my taste buds, whatever it is. So then if you start questioning this, it then starts questioning that's how the unraveling happened. It is to question everything. And not everyone has an insatiable, like my partner has an insatiable appetite when it comes to this. And sometimes he asks me a question that I get frustrated that I don't have the answer to because I've never asked that question myself. But it is that characteristic which allowed me to get to more and more truth of myself. Because without that, then what are we living under? Falsehoods.
How can we find you? How can we work with you? How can we go forward and start this work?
I'm the Elinor Moshe on Instagram. And just so with questioning everything, even you start questioning your name. Like, do you want to carry the surnames that you were given because the surnames they were handed down to you and they carry a frequency that do shape your reality? And I'll just very quickly mention this point about I had a reading for a client and she wanted to see what her married name introduced into her reality. And it actually introduced a frequency of hardships where, and she was saying this, it's like, ever since I got married, life wasn't that hard. And then I got married and life got really hard. And then her husband passed away after 20 or so years, and she wasn't sure if she should keep the name. So it's like, let's see what happened. And even questioning your name. Does this name, does Elinor Moshe as a name, does it serve, where I want to go and who I want to be? So yeah, so for now, it's the Elinor Moshe on Instagram, Elinor Moshe on LinkedIn. Our website is truthofyou.com.au. We have a podcast, we have a book coming out, and if people are called to a deepened exploration, then we might be for them. But we know that we're not going to be for many people, but that's okay.
That is okay. And I am incredibly thankful it's sitting in my dark room. Like I realized that I'm so into the conversation when I have a second to look around and go, "Ooh, it's kind of dark in here." All of a sudden, um, that thank you for first being willing to be a part of this show, but for the work that you're doing that is breaking molds across the universe. This is the first time that I have started hearing about it. And so I'm really excited for the audience to hear about it and to understand that there are other ways, that there is more than we can possibly fathom out there. Love it.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes you've got to roll up your sleeves and dig into the dark psyche, and other times you get to play with the light. But it's all part of the dance that we're learning how to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Angela.